the picturesque village of Darrowbrook, nestled amidst the rolling hills of the English countryside, life was a tranquil rhythm of chirping birds and the gentle rustle of leaves. But within the confines of a quaint cottage at the end of a winding cobblestone path lived a 14-year-old girl named Emily, whose world was anything but peaceful. Emily, the sole child of her family, had always been an enigmatic figure. Her obsession with the arcane and supernatural had set her apart from her peers. While the other children of Darrowbrook played tag and climbed trees, Emily was consumed by her unquenchable thirst for knowledge about the mystical arts. Her small bedroom had transformed into a sanctuary of the occult, filled with dusty volumes, ancient scrolls, and curious-looking artifacts. One could scarcely find Emily without a book in her hands, her youthful eyes devouring every word about incantations and the secrets of the unseen world. Her mother, Sarah, who had once dabbled in the world of the mysterious, but had put those pursuits aside for a more conventional life, watched her daughter's growing obsession with growing concern. Sarah, a loving and nurturing woman, had longed for a child for many years. She had tried every conceivable remedy and consulted every available expert to conceive a child, but all her efforts had been in vain. Until one miraculous day, when she and her husband Edward discovered they were to become parents at last. Emily's birth had been a joyous occasion for the couple, and Sarah had embraced motherhood with open arms. However, as Emily grew, it became clear that she was not like other children. While her parents cherished their only child, Edward, a workaholic who had always been more devoted to his career than his family, struggled to connect with the girl. He often found himself absent from their home, leaving Sarah to care for Emily's growing needs. As Emily delved deeper into her obsession, her mother's old fascination with the mystical world resurfaced. Sarah began to spend hours with her daughter, poring over the dusty tomes together and indulging in discussions about magic, folklore, and the unexplained. Their shared passion created a bond that was as enchanting as it was unconventional. One crisp autumn evening, with leaves of gold and crimson carpeting the garden outside, Sarah found herself at a crossroads. She had watched Emily become increasingly isolated from her peers, her only solace found in the cryptic pages of her books. As the nights grew longer and the wind whispered strange secrets through the trees, Sarah turned to her trusted neighbor, Eleanor, for guidance. Eleanor was a woman of ambition, a seeker of fortunes and a keeper of secrets. Her life had always been punctuated by an insatiable thirst for more, for something beyond the ordinary life she had known in Darrowbrook. She had often entertained fantasies of wealth and extravagance that lay beyond the boundaries of their quaint village. Over a cup of steaming chamomile tea, Sarah confided in Eleanor about her growing concerns for Emily. Eleanor listened attentively, her mind churning with plans and possibilities. She had long suspected that Sarah's newfound interest in the occult held the key to unlocking a world of riches she had always coveted.
I don't know what to do, Eleanor.
Sarah sighed, her eyes heavy with worry.
Emily's obsession with magic has grown out of control. It's affecting her studies, her friendships, and her relationship with Edward.
Eleanor leaned forward.
Sarah, I might have a solution for you,
she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper.
There's a mental hospital in the nearby town and they specialize in helping troubled children. Perhaps it's time to consider that.
Sarah hesitated, her maternal instincts clashing with her desperation to help her daughter. She saw the concern in Eleanor's eyes, but little did she know the depths to which her neighbor was willing to go to fulfill her own desires for wealth and power. Several weeks passed since Emily had been placed within the cold, lifeless walls of the mental hospital in the nearby town. The separation from her parents was abrupt and bewildering for the young girl. Emily's room, though clean and well-furnished, felt more like a prison cell, and the ever-watchful eyes of the hospital staff only intensified her sense of isolation. Within the confines of the institution, Emily's days grew monotonous. She was subjected to a rigid schedule of therapy sessions, group activities, and medication routines. Despite the efforts of the compassionate staff, she often withdrew into herself, lost in the labyrinth of her thoughts and obsessions. Sarah, her heart heavy with guilt and longing, visited as often as she could. She would sit by Emily's bedside, reading her favorite stories and whispering words of encouragement. Emily's eyes, once filled with the sparkle of curiosity, had dulled, and she clung to the presence of her mother like a lifeline. As the days turned into weeks, Emily's condition took a turn for the worse. Unaware of the sinister web of events that behind the tragic news of her parents' deaths, the hospital staff continued their tireless efforts to help the troubled teenager find her way back to reality. However, the tranquil facade of Darrowbrook concealed a growing storm. Unknown to Emily and the hospital staff, a shadowy figure named Cassandra had taken a keen interest in her fate. Cassandra, a mysterious woman who had worked at the hospital for years, was no ordinary nurse. She had a secret longing that had remained unfulfilled for far too long. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the hospital corridors grew dim, Cassandra sat alone in her office, deep in thought. She had heard whispers of Emily's tragic circumstances and learned of the girl's unshakable obsession with magic and the occult. Cassandra couldn't help but wonder if this was a sign that this was a sign of the end of her secret longing, a chance for her to finally experience the pleasures she had longed for. But with each passing day, Cassandra's attitude towards Emily changed. Over time, she came to see her as close to her, and the desire to adopt her captured her heart. She began to spend more time with the young girl, offering her a sympathetic ear and gentle encouragement. Emily, slowly thawing from her emotional isolation, responded to Cassandra's kindness. The woman's presence became a source of comfort in the otherwise lifeless environment of the hospital. Unknown to both Emily and the hospital staff, Cassandra had a secret, one that would cast a dark shadow over the lives of everyone involved. In her quest to become a mother, she had once sought the help of a sinister sorcerer named Malachi. Cassandra's desire to become a mother had consumed her, but cruel fate had left her barren. She had watched Emily's arrival at the hospital with a mixture of curiosity and compassion. Her maternal instincts had stirred, and an idea began to take root in her mind. Emily, an orphan now, seemed like the answer to her deepest yearning. Malachi, a woman with an insatiable thirst for power and a disregard for the consequences of her actions, had offered Cassandra a cruel bargain. She promised to grant her deepest desires for happiness and motherhood, but at a terrible price. She demanded the blood of a young girl to complete a dark and malevolent spell. For this, she collaborated with Sarah's ambitious neighbor Eleanor and asked her to direct the girl to the hospital where Cassandra worked. Cassandra had been desperate at the time, willing to go to any lengths to fulfill her dreams. She had agreed to the sorcerer's terms, not fully comprehending the horrors that lay ahead. In return for her dark gift, she had been tasked with delivering the blood of an innocent girl, a sinister act that would forever bind her to the sorcerer's malevolent will. But now, as Cassandra found herself growing closer to Emily, her maternal instincts began to clash with the malevolent forces that held her captive. She had grown attached to the young girl and could not bear the thought of sacrificing her for the sake of a sorcerer's spell. Cassandra's inner turmoil intensified with each passing day. She knew that to break free from Malachi's grasp, she would need to find a way to undo the dark magic that bound them together. Because the bond created by magic was realized using Emily's youthful energy. But the sorcerer had warned her that there was no turning back, no escape from the pact they had forged. Despite her fear and the ominous consequences that loomed, Cassandra was determined to protect Emily from the sinister fate that awaited her. The battle between light and darkness, longing and selfish desire, was about to unfold within the lifeless walls of the mental hospital, and Emily's life hung in the balance. In the weeks that followed, Cassandra's bond with Emily deepened. The young girl, who had once been lost in her own world of obsessions, began to respond to Cassandra's relevant attitude. Their relationships brought a sense of normalcy to Emily's otherwise tumultuous life within the hospital. Every afternoon, Cassandra would sit by Emily's bedside, offering words of comfort and hope. She would regale her with stories of adventures, both real and imaginary, transporting Emily away from the lifeless hospital room to far-off lands where magic and wonder thrived. It was in these moments that Emily's eyes regained a glimmer of the curiosity and vitality they had lost. One evening, as the moon cast a pale glow over the hospital grounds, Cassandra ventured into the attic of her home, hidden away from prying eyes. Amongst dusty boxes of old belongings, she retrieved a weathered leather-bound tome. This notebook was Cassandra's accursed notebook that she secretly took from Malachi's house, and it contained the instructions and dark incantations for the malevolent spell she cast on her. The very sight of the tome sent shivers down Cassandra's spine, but she knew that if she were to protect Emily, she had to find a way to reverse the spell. She began to pore over its pages, the words within a sinister whisper that threatened to engulf her. As Cassandra read, she learned that the sorcerer had forged an unholy connection between her and Emily. Their fates were intertwined, and to break the spell, Cassandra had to follow a sequence of rituals that would sever the ties that bound them. Days turned into sleepless nights as Cassandra meticulously deciphered the cryptic instructions. She was determined to unravel the sorcerer's dark magic and save Emily from the sinister fate that loomed. But with each passing hour, the weight of the task grew heavier, and Cassandra's guilt gnawed at her conscience. One day, driven by a desperation she could no longer contain, Cassandra visited Malachi's hidden lair. It was a decrepit, abandoned cottage deep within the heart of the nearby forest, a place where the boundaries between the mundane and the mystical seemed to blur. Malachi, a sinister figure with eyes that seemed to pierce the depths of one's soul, greeted Cassandra with a sinister smile. She knew why she had come, for the dark magic that bound them also granted her insight into her thoughts and intentions.
You cannot escape your fate, Cassandra,
she hissed, her voice a chilling whisper.
The spell is irreversible, and the blood that binds us is the only path to your desires.
Cassandra, her heart heavy with dread, dared to challenge the sorcerer.
I won't allow Emily to be sacrificed for my desires,
she declared, her voice trembling with defiance. Malachi's laughter echoed through the dimly lit cottage.
You have no choice, Cassandra. You are bound to me as surely as I am bound to you. attempt to break the spell, and you will unleash forces you cannot comprehend.
Determined to protect Emily, Cassandra left the sorcerer's lair with newfound resolve. She knew that her path was fraught with danger, and Malachi's ominous warning lingered in her thoughts. But she could not allow the sinister fate that awaited the young girl she had come to care for. As Cassandra continued her quest to break the spell, she knew that the battle between light and darkness had only just begun. The outcome would not only determine Emily's fate, but would set in motion a chain of events that would test the limits of sacrifice and the enduring power of the human spirit.